If you live in the Chicago area, it's hard to ignore gun violence. So far in 2015, there have been over 2,500 shooting victims in the city. But there is hope, led by committed people of faith who are providing healing and working to prevent gun violence. Let's welcome Reverend Dr. David Daniels III, Professor of World Christianity and Church History at McCormick Theological Seminary. Dr. Daniels recently finished a 2-year research project to identify how churches can best stem gun violence. We also welcome 2 youth who are very active in the social justice ministry of Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago. Kari Armster is a senior at Whitney Young High School, and Mariah Johnson is a sophomore at Whitney Young. Tell us about your research on the church's best practices concerning guns and gun violence. How did that come about, and what did you learn?
In 2013, the idea came about to do a survey to get an idea of what black churches in the metropolitan area of Chicago are dealing with and finding out ways to creatively address urban issues. One of the issues we were focusing on was gun violence. So out of 38 congregations that responded, 22 said that they were involved with social ministry in various ways. And those ways probably go through, I think, 3 areas that I would like to lift up. One of them I call ending social isolation. And there's been a number of studies that say that youth that are in at-risk communities are often socially isolated from a number of resources, options, and even sense of what their future might look like. A number of them think that they're not even going to make it to 18, and 25 is like old. And so what the ending social isolation does is say that if congregations that take their youth out of at-risk communities, even for a temporary time, a camp, a youth conference, going to a concert in downtown Chicago, that can broaden the horizon, change the way they think about their possibilities, and open up a new future for them. We also saw that congregations that worked with what's called traumatized social networks. In one study, that of a neighborhood of about 71,000 residents, that 41% of victims of gun violence, those who died through homicide, that 41% of those victims were in a network of about 3,178 people. So it's not even 5% of that community that is overly victimized. And so if we can identify what those networks look like in places like Woodlawn or Austin or other communities, and then provide services for those youth, find ways to help them deal with their own anger, deal with trauma, being traumatized, dealing with having seen or knowing someone who's been victimized, that can make a world of a difference. And then the last thing that we saw was that there still needs to be an attempt to deal with the macro issues. Smart policing, affordable housing, jobs, summer jobs for youth, educational system that works. Those cannot be dismissed as side issues. Those are central to the issues that we found out during our study.
I would like to know from Kari and Mariah, how have you been personally affected by gun violence?
I haven't personally been a witness for horrific events, but I've seen certain results of those events. There's actually a young man about my age at our church. Last year, he was shot multiple times outside of a local roller rink, and he had to get 10 surgeries actually, 3 the night that he got shot. And so, unfortunately, the next step in that process was the doctors had to amputate his legs. To see the expressions of their family members, the effect it has on their families when their young boy, their young daughter, whoever is getting shot, it's something that I definitely hope to be able to have an effect upon in the future.
And I, like Kari, have not been personally affected by the gun violence. But in my congregation, I know when Hydea Pendleton was murdered, we had people in our congregation that knew her personally, and just to see the look on their faces and just to know that people are hurting and people are being really affected by this issue, and that is what our church is trying to change, and that's what we are here to help try to change.
Tell us about the We Matter ministry and how your church is joining the movement against gun violence.
In the We Matter ministry, there's a subsection, My Life Matters. And so we, as a church, we did a protest, a march, where we marched from our church to our local L station, and we did a die-in. And that was in remembrance of all the fallen brothers and sisters who have been a victim to violence. And we also made a video, and I was one of the youth in the video, and the video was about the 10 rules of survival if stopped by the police. And the video was a public service announcement, and it was for people to really know what they have to do in order to get home safely.
10 rules.
10 rules.
10 rules.
10 rules of survival.
10 rules of survival if stopped by the police.
Number 1, be polite and respectful when stopped by the police.
Be polite.
Be respectful.
Remember that your goal is to get home safely.
Your goal is to get home safely.
Your goal is to get home safely. I'm sorry.
Number 2, if you feel your rights have been violated, you and your parents have a right to file a formal complaint with your local police jurisdiction.
Number 3, do not, under any circumstances, get in an argument with the police.
Number 4, always remember that anything you say or do can be used against you in court.
Number 5, keep your hands in plain sight.
Make sure the police can see your hands at all times.
Number 6, avoid physical contact with police officers. Do not make any sudden movements and keep your hands out of your pockets.
Number 7,
Do not.
Do not.
Do not, do not, do not, do not.
Do not run, even if you are afraid.
Number 8, even if you believe you are innocent, do not resist arrest.
Number 9, if you are arrested, do not make any statements about the incident until you are able to meet with a lawyer or public defender.
Number 10, stay calm and remain in control.
Watch your words.
Watch your body language.
Watch your emotions. Remember.
Remember, your goal is to get home safely.
Get home safely.
Last month, October, was anti-bullying month, so we've tried to incorporate that as well to bring a perspective of not only like gun violence being the problem, but all kinds of violence being an issue.
Do you still have hope for the future?
There's a lot of things going on, but we have to just continue to have faith in God and continue to do our research and give interviews like these, and just to educate people about what's going on. And if we lose hope or faith, then it's never going to change.
I still have some hope. I know I'm realistic. It's not going to happen in the very, very near future. And so that just shows that it just takes a process. It just takes a commitment for all of us to be able to just make a statement to say that there is an issue going on in our country that we need to solve. I believe it also just takes everybody from all different groups to just meet us halfway as well, to understand our struggle and what we're going through. And so I believe that in the future, let's say in the next year or so, hopefully we can just have like more people just understand like what the problem is and just become our friends, not our allies. We don't want to make any enemies with the movement we're trying to make. We want everybody to understand where we're coming from. And I believe it can happen. I believe that if we just continue to just peacefully express what we think needs to be changed, if we continue to develop the projects we're doing with our church, with like the We Matter, the Nehemiah Project, the My Life Matters, then I think that there can be a change in the future.
I want to add that I agree with these young people. We have to always remember that 25 years ago, almost 1,000 people were murdered each year in Chicago. And that number has cut now below 500. It's somewhere, I think last year, around 430 or 35. So they weren't born 25 years ago. However, 25 years ago, the numbers in this city were a lot worse, more than double. So if we could cut it in 25 years, my prayer would be that maybe in 5 years we can cut it in half again, and then cut it in half again, till we can get the numbers down to where it's something that a humane society would reflect, not a violent society.
Well, thank you, Dr. Daniels, Kari, and Mariah, for sharing your insight with us. I'm LaShondra Stevens for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.